It's the Introvert Dating Success Podcast, the show for introverted men that's all about learning how to attract beautiful women and still get your precious alone time. And now, here's your host, dating coach and fellow introvert, Harry Wilmington.
There we go. Hey guys, welcome to the Introvert Dating Success Show. I'm your host as always, Harry Wilmington. Still getting your precious alone time. I've been off for a couple of weeks. Last week, my brother turned 40 and came into my side of the country to visit. And so we went out and did some cool stuff with him and his kids and his wife. And so I was doing all that. So I couldn't do a show, even though I posted up videos last week. So because of that, I actually have a lot to talk about today because I have 2 weeks worth of comments and emails that I got from you guys that I'm going to be happy to answer on this show. Plus, as always, this show is ultimately about you. So if you have any questions you want to ask me during the course of the show, you can write them in the comment box and I'll be happy to answer them. So I'm basically going to just be answering a bunch of questions that I got over the course of 2 weeks. In addition to one of the questions that I got is going to correlate with the title of today's episode, which is Secure Love, Decoding Affectionate Withdrawal. And I'm doing this show, the title of that in particular, because I have so many guys that write me saying things like, me and this girl, when we first started seeing each other, we were texting each other back and forth all the time. And now it's fast forward to a couple of months or maybe a year or so in, and that's not happening as much. Or there are other things that she used to do a lot of that is starting to pull back a bit on, and it's got me worried. And I really want to talk about that. And honestly, the idea for that came based on this other guy who I watch on YouTube. His channel is called Psych Hacks, and it's a psychiatrist guy that talks about a variety of things as it relates to relationships. And he did a video talking about why it is that in marriages, the amount of sex people have tends to start to dwindle. And I thought that his answer was eye-opening. And I realized that it also correlated with a lot of other things that men initially get attached to early on in the dating phase, that when the women start to take them away, they think, oh my God, this is so horrible. Things aren't going right. And it's really not about that. So I'm going to get to that as I go through these questions. Once again, you guys have any questions you want to ask me, feel free to leave it in the comments. You can also always write to me at harrywilmington@gmail.com, which reminds me, there was a guy that wrote me this week that had a question about a 7-year-long relationship situation that he was going through with a woman, but I'm still waiting on full details for that. So if you're watching this, I was going to answer it during the show, but you wrote me and said there was more details that you want to discuss. So before I get those, I don't want to talk about that on this show. So, but let you guys know, yeah, you write me, I'll be happy to answer the questions. If your situation is more dire and needs talking about like now, you can sign up for a coaching session by going to introvertdatingsuccess.com, clicking on the coaching tab and setting up a one-on-one phone consultation, all right? You can also go there for my various ebooks, audiobooks, and programs, all of which are designed to help you in your dating life. I actually have more books that I'm going to be putting out more books on a more consistent basis starting this month. So be sure to check back frequently on the website to see what ebooks I have put on in the store. All right. So with all that said, let's go ahead and get into some of these questions that I got from this past 2 weeks. So first off, so this guy wrote me and said, hey, coach, I was hoping you could do a video on if she has a boyfriend. She lives with the guy, but I see her every so often at the same place, never gone out on a date, but she'll randomly text me. I never initiate contact, only in person when I see her at the gym. I've done a lot of work on myself and know the basic don't simp, focus on yourself, yada, yada, yada. I feel that she is really feeling me, but is in a tough spot as she lives with dude and they've dated for a few years. Now, the vibe that I get is that she might be thinking, quote, crap, if I leave my boyfriend, where am I going to go? What if this dude is just playing me, etc.? You know, all the random stuff we think the other person might be thinking. Also, I'm keeping the abundance mindset where I'm talking to other girls and I know she's seeing me talking to them, but just wanted to get your perspective on this one as the vibe is great. But as you say, you can vibe with many other girls as well. Thanks in advance. Beat slap so hard, call it Will Smith. That's from my song French Toast on the Kevin Samuels Was Right album. So appreciate you quoting my song. I like that a lot. So anyway, so to start off with, my general stance is this, is that if a woman has a boyfriend, that's it. Like she has a boyfriend and you do not pursue further. At best, you would say, hey, I think there's a vibe here, but you're still in a relationship. And until that is completely finished, then we can just keep things as they are, but I don't want to pursue anything. If that changes, then please let me know, because I'm not going to ever persuade you guys to try to be homewreckers or to go in thinking, well, she seems dissatisfied with her boyfriend, so I'm going to come in there and do a thing. I don't promote that. And here's why. Because if this woman is willing to try to monkey branch off and try to start seeing you while she's still currently in a relationship, then at some point in the future, as you're dating her and things start to go haywire, maybe there's a day where you guys have an argument and she doesn't quite agree with what you're saying and she feels hurt by it, she's going to do the exact same thing to you. And the question you have to ask yourself is, do you want to have to constantly be looking behind your back, wondering if every time you guys have a fight, she's going to go try to get with the next guy that is allegedly just her friend? So what I would say is this person is not actually a candidate for you to date right now. Like, until she gets out of the situation, until she leaves her boyfriend, until she's out of the actual place that she lives with the boyfriend, she is not a candidate. Now, I know you're thinking to yourself, because this is what guys do, right? If we really like a woman and she's currently with somebody, we'll try to do what like the R&B singers do. Oh, she must not be really happy. Oh, she just needs a good guy to get in that situation and make her feel better. That other guy must be like really treating her badly or whatever. Doesn't matter, all right? Because the reality is that if she legitimately wanted to be done with this guy, she'd figure it out. And this is also, by the way, why I'm not an advocate for people living together before they get married, because like if something starts to go bad, well, she's got rent to pay, he's got rent to pay, their name is probably both on the lease. So it's not so simple if you guys live together and then things break off and now it's like crap, but you guys still live together and who's leaving what? If you guys both have names on the property and have paperwork established, then both of you have the right to stay there in spite of the turmoil that might cause. But hey, we're all adults. We all make these decisions. So she knew going in there was a chance that this could possibly not work out. But that's not your concern. Your concern is that she currently has a boyfriend and that she has not left him yet. And so if she's trying to pursue getting with you, then I would put judgment on her for doing that. But in terms of you, this should not be your focus. As I've said before, as you quoted me so eloquently, there are other women out there that don't have boyfriends that are willing and ready to date you. Do not put all your stock in trying to date this woman that currently has a boyfriend, because I assure you, she will do the exact same thing to you if you get in a relationship with her, all right? So I would judge her on that and not really make her a choice at this point in time. That's my 2 cents. You asked me, so that's what I'm giving you. Hopefully this helps you out. Let's see, moving on to the next person. This person left a comment under I had a lot of people this week leave comments under my 3 things she's feeling when she ignores you and how to handle it video. So I guess that one's starting to get more attention, which I'm grateful for, all right? So he left a comment under that video and also under my 5 reasons women need 3 months to solidify their feelings video. And this guy is clearly one of those guys that's like, hey, it's not fair that women get a pass and men don't, and yada, yada, yada. So he says, I understand why you do these videos. The problem I have, especially nowadays, is that this gives women a reason to take no responsibility, to find a way to control their own emotions, and we live in a victimhood society. Another reason this is under the 5 reasons women need 3 months to solidify their feelings. He says another reason why is because the majority of men have to pay for what Chad did to her, meaning like she got ran through and then Chad up and dumped her, and now she's all hurt, so now she's making the next guy wait. She chose to go after Chad. That's her fault. This is not against you or your channel. Some of this stuff gets really frustrating. So I want to address this because there are a lot of guys that I think are well-meaning, but based on their own negative experience of dating, they come to my channel and they see me talking, because I talk very positively about women, and I mentioned that, women just have a different way of viewing the world, and how they go about dating and thinking about attraction is different than ours. And that means that I feel as though both sexes should be doing a good job of being able to adjust to how the other one, best talks and best communicates. But of the 2 of you, one of y'all got to start first. And women already know that if they get into a relationship, a good woman is going to give you the world. She's going to think about you and what you need at times when you're not even expecting it. But she needs to see that you're going to put forth that same effort. So that means coming into their playground and sometimes being able to better understand how they communicate and talk to them and operate in their language. So they say, oh, he actually knows how to deal with women. You know what? Let me start learning about how to deal with him because I think he's going to be a good catch. And I want to make sure I, of the woman, do not mess this up, right? But anyway, so it's not that I think that women should take no responsibility. It's just I'm trying to teach you guys that when you do certain things, women across the board are just going to naturally respond a certain way. In that video, the 3 things she's feeling when she ignores your video, I talk about the fact that sometimes if she's ignoring this because she spent too much time with you, for example, and she needs time to back away and be with her thoughts, and you constantly coming towards her, she's not being allowed that space and time. So now she's ignoring you, hoping that you're not going to take it too personally, but that it's going to allow her to really have time to assess this entire situation. And so you can be mad at women about that, but most women are going to operate that way. Most women are going to need time to not be around you and to not see you, which we'll actually go into a little bit more when I get into the whole affectionate withdrawal thing. But yeah, like that's the thing that women across the board are going to do. So as a guy, you have 2 options. You can be mad about it and complain about it and how women should just know off the bat that they want to see me and they shouldn't blah, blah. Or you can say, oh, women need time, so let me give them that time. You see how simple that is? Like now I can just say, hey, she needs time to not hear from me. Great. I have to do less texting, less calling. And when I do that, it's going to make her appreciate me and think about me more and then want to be the one to reach out to me. Like guys are fighting because they want to do more stuff. And I'm trying to tell guys, if you do less stuff, you'll get better results. Who would have thought it, right? But like, yeah. So again, it's not taking responsibility away from women because I think that women of their own accord should be learning how men operate and why we want to talk and connect all the time. But this is a men's channel and I'm teaching you guys for the most part. So I have to tell you, hey, this is how women think. This is how they function. This is how they operate. Be mad at the manual or just know this stuff. So when you're out there, you'll make better decisions about what you're doing and how you're reacting, responding to things. And that will inadvertently have women want to be around you a lot longer. Like, I'm sorry that it doesn't always work. I know a lot of guys come to this channel saying, but women should blah, 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 blah. And you know what? I agree. Women should, but many of them early on in the dating process are not until they see that you are putting in effort. So be the one that learns this stuff and know why they're going to potentially pull away so you won't do the thing to make them pull away. And then he says, in response to the 5 reasons women need 3 months to solidify their feelings, this whole thing about, he's saying basically like women need 3 months to figure out how they feel about you because the last guy she banged after like a week dumped her and did her wrong. And hey, that is some women's experience. There are some women that have to go through a couple of relationships where they rush in too fast and they get screwed over figuratively and literally before they say, hey, you know what? Let me be more patient with the next few guys I date so I won't get hurt. Because you got to think about this, right? Let's say he's right. Let's say that Chad came in, date 1, night 1 at a bar they met somewhere, went home, banged her brains out, did that a few times, and then he left, right? Women are giving entrance and access to their bodies in order to learn these lessons. And a woman that is trying to have a straight head on her shoulders and not have too high of a body count is going to know after 1 or 2 of these instances, hey, I don't want this to keep happening. Like, I'm letting these dudes enter into my body and then they're treating me bad. They're leaving me. They're not treating me the way I need to be respected and whatnot. And that doesn't feel good. And now that person's been inside her and that memory is never going to go away. Like forever and ever, no matter what she does, she let this Chad get inside of her and do stuff. And she doesn't want to feel that with a bunch of guys. She might be a woman. It's like, hey, I had 2 situations that were like that. I learned my lesson. So from now on, when I date, 3 months across the board for each guy. And that's not even like saying that you have to wait 3 months for sex. It could just be, I'm going to wait 3 months for a relationship. Most women will still, after 2 or 3 or 4 good dates, like hook up with you, you know, even someone on a first date still. But the point is that even if that's true, you can't not berate her for that. You can't berate her for learning a lesson about when dudes hook up with you too early, they leave. Maybe that's not the best strategy for you. And then they learn from that. Now you're mad at her that you don't get to do the same thing that those other guys did that she had to learn from because those other guys did it and you don't get to. Like, sorry, dude. I just, in my eyes, that's not a fair assessment. Like, I don't want women to be like banging like a plethora of dudes before me. But if she has a couple of guys that happened with, I want her to be like, you know what? I don't want to do that. And I'm learning, because women that are learning means that they're able to like take a situation and be like, oh, I'm part of the problem of the situation. I need to change up how I'm operating in order to get better results. So for these other guys that are coming in, I'm going to be a bit more careful. So again, and that's an example of a woman that is in fact taking responsibility. So you can't say women are taking no responsibility and then be like, but she's only making guys wait because Chad screwed her over. That is her saying, I'm part of the equation. I'm taking responsibility for how I've been operating, and I'm going to change that up. So that it is what it is, but hopefully that answers that comment. Like, it just, I have a lot of guys come on the channel that are all in their feelings and have a really bad, bitter taste towards women. And hey, I get it, because I was there when I was in my early 20s. I was having the worst dating time. I go on dates, women would show interest for a little bit, and then they'd go away. Or I found out that they have a crush on me, so I'd express it that I have a crush on them also, and then they go away. And it's very frustrating when it feels like you don't have the keys of what you need to do in order to keep a woman's interest. Like, can I tell her I'm interested without her going away? Or do I have to act like I'm not interested? Do I need to be an absolute a-hole in order to get women? But then I don't want to be an a-hole because it feels weird on my part. But then if I'm not that way, like I don't want you to have that confusion. So if you're in that situation, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com and sign up for a phone call consultation. I'll be happy to help coach you through these various situations. Also, go there for my ebooks. They'll be sure to help you out as well. All right. So we're going to get into one more question here. Then we'll get into, I guess, what will technically be the crux of the show. As always, guys, if you have any questions you want to ask me during the course of this, you can leave it in the comments. It doesn't have to be about anything pertaining to this show. It could be a question about your dating life personally, or just dating questions in general. Let's see. Let's go into this question here. So this guy says, I went out on 2 dates with the girl, only texted to set up dates, and the dates were once a week. The second date was on a Wednesday, and we went out, and she was all over me, making out and everything, and she opened up to me about herself, but it was too late at night to do anything as we had work the next day, so I sent her on her way. And he said I should have pulled the trigger earlier in the night. I'll say this, guy, it's not the worst thing in the world if you turn away a guaranteed hookup. But if you were game and she was game, you should have gone and played the game. I think sometimes what happens is, as men, we learn these lessons of, okay, don't rush in and don't make it all about hooking up. And in the process of that, we think, okay, I'm going to be the good guy that doesn't do that. But then when the opportunity presents itself and the woman's basically saying, I'm actually down to do that, we think in our heads, no. I don't want to, if I do that, I'm going to come across this certain kind of guy. She's going to judge me. And so we end up shooting ourselves in the foot. And what I want to stress to you is this, is that it is not your job to try to control how she responds to whatever it is you guys do. If you think if we hook up, then she's going to be thinking, I just used her for sex. You know what? It's not your responsibility to judge her or try to control how she thinks about what happened after you guys do it. Because here's the thing, you can't really do that. For example, let's say you're trying to convince her that this is not just about sex. Well, you can't do that by saying, I swear if we hook up, it's not going to just be about sex. All you can do is this. You guys hook up, you have a good time, and then in a few days, you call her again for another date. That's how she'll know that this is not just about a hookup. But in the moment, you're not going to be able to do anything about how she's going to think about this in the after part of this, all right? And that's not your job, all right? So if she's presenting this thing as if to say, hey, if she's giving you signs to indicate that she's also down for the hookup, stop thinking in your head about, but I don't want her to feel, stop. Assuming you're a good guy and you legitimately have attraction to her and you also want to show her a good time in the bedroom and you're not going to be a selfish lover, then go ahead and do the thing. And then just know you're going to hit her up in a few days. It's not your job to see to it that she's completely secure in the fact that you're not in this for just a hookup. It's just not. Anyway, so he says, she always texts me after the date. On that second date, she was really wanting to see me Friday night. So I agreed. Ooh. All right. So what I tell you guys early on is this, is that for those first few dates, Fridays and Saturdays should be a no-no because those are typically days that are reserved for couples. And so even if she's well-meaning in trying to present a Friday or Saturday, she might not be aware in her own subconscious that this is going to now make her feel as if you guys are already in a relationship. And if it hasn't been like 2 or 3 months and she hasn't solidified her feelings yet, then she's going to suddenly go into like, oh my God, it's too soon. This is why it's your job as a guy to know the knowledge of maybe for those first few dates, don't accept Friday or Saturdays. Like if she says, hey, let's go out this Saturday, you have to know that if it's like date 2 or 3, probably not the best day. And you want to say something like, oh, you know what? I'd love to, but I'm actually busy on this Friday or Saturday with some other things. But hey, I'm free Sunday. Like for those first couple of weeks, stick to Sunday through Thursday, because those aren't days that indicate that you're in a relationship with somebody. You got to think about the fact that on a Friday or Saturday, there's no work day the next day, which means that you are willingly giving up your time in order to spend more time with them on these days. But if they're not the boyfriend or girlfriend, again, they're gonna be looking at like, how is it that this guy was able to so easily sacrifice these days? Is it because he's feeling super serious about me? Oh my God, but am I there yet? And sometimes women don't do the best things for their own self-interest when it comes to dating. That's why, again, you as a guy need to be aware of these things so you know to not let her trip your guys' dating journey up by trying to suggest to do things or go out on certain days that are too soon in the dating process. Anyway, so they agreed for Friday. He says when she sent her after date text late at night, I stupidly, his words, not mine, I stupidly replied that night with trying to set the details. She never replied. And then Friday afternoon, she said she had to cancel because she was not feeling well. Ooh, this is not good. I said, no problem. Reach out to me when you're feeling better. And she said, okay, I will do that. So, gentlemen, one, I never recommend that you guys ever say to a woman, well, hey, unless it's like she's like rejected you twice, then you'll say something like, you know, hey, well, that's great. Well, you know what? When your schedule frees up, reach out to me. That's only if she's rejected your date twice. But if she says, for example, this one, she said she had to cancel because she was not feeling well, I would have just said, hey, no problem. I'll hit you up later. That way I'm saying to her, I'm going to still take the responsibility of hitting you up to ask for a date. You do not want to leave the responsibility of planning a date on the woman for those first few dates, all right? Because a lot of women, even ones that are well-meaning and might like you, the women still want to feel as though they're being pursued for those first parts of the process. And so that means she wants to feel as though the guy's coming to her asking for a date. You saying, hey, reach out to me, you're saying, I want you to ask me on a date. And across the board, most women don't want to do that. Even ones that are really are getting to know you, are starting to feel interest for you, like they still want to leave it on you to do that so they can feel like they're doing the feminine part of saying yes to a date. So even though, and by the way, I don't agree with her canceling date. Canceling dates early on are already bad. I only allow 2 cancellations before I'm just like, I'm the heck out of here because this is too much. But like, yeah, it's not a good sign that she's canceling this early on after a couple of dates, right? But anyway, so he said, reach out to me. He says, now, Stu, oh, the other thing too is like, if you tell her, hey, reach out to me, and she says, I will do that, you've now let the ball out of your hands. And now you have to wait for her to be a woman of her word and reach out to you for the next date. You can't be saying, hey, reach out to me when your schedule's free, and then trying to call her up, hey, is your schedule free? Because no. You left it on her to do that. You now have to wait for her to call you. This is, again, why you don't leave it on her to do that. But if you do, you have to assume she's going to be a woman of her word and call you when she's ready to see you. If she does not, then that means that she had low interest and you move on to somebody else. Anyway, he says now, stupidly, I couldn't resist. Yes, you could have. You chose not to. I couldn't resist and hit her up Tuesday the next week, trying to set a date for later in the week. She said she had finals next week, but she would be free next weekend, not this weekend. I, stupidly, by the way, if you know that you're making stupid moves after you make them, you probably knew it was going to be a stupid move before you made it. Why not just not make the move? Like, you could save yourself a whole lot of stupidlies if you would just say, wait a minute, you know what? Harry's talked about this. He's talked about reaching out after saying that, you know, you'd wait for her to reach out. So maybe this is not the move to make. But I get it. Guys, we get apprehensive. We feel as though this woman is different from all the other women. She's different from the norm. And it's going to be totally fine with this woman if I make this move that for other women will be the wrong move. But this one seems pretty sane. So I could do this move. I'm telling you, this is why in the beginning, you treat all women the exact same, because that woman you think is different from all the others, I can guarantee you make the wrong move and she's going to react just like all the other women would have. All right. And you don't know for sure until you've spent 2 to 3 months with her that if she's like that unicorn or if she's acting like all the women in references to how she's responding to things, all right? So don't assume that you have a different out-of-the-box woman on your hands because most likely you do not. Continuing, let's see, he said at finals. Then he said, I, stupidly, sent a voice note with a flirty tone trying to plan something later in the week. So this guy, he's already said he tried to plan something. She said she had finals. And then his response was to hit her up again and say, but we should do something this week. Now you're not listening. Now you're looking desperate. Now you're looking needy. And now you're going to become the kind of guy that she's going to be thinking, God, this guy is just so obsessed with me already. It's been 1 or 2 dates. Like, this is freaky. I'm out. All right. So this is why, A, you don't double text, and you should definitely not be sending voice messages. This is also why I have a book at my website called Texting Like a Boss, 21 Texting Commandments, because you are breaking them by double texting and triple texting and trying to send all these texts to get her on a date when she's already said, hey, not this week, next weekend. She, to be fair, said, hey, I'll be free next weekend. The fact that she said that and you're still trying to set a date for this week, dude, women, if they like you, they will like you longer than if it takes them a week or 2 to see you again, all right? So this is just now showing insecurity on your part, which could start to turn her off. Anyway, she said, I'll have to put some thought into that. I never replied, but I am just going to sit back now because I know I'm coming off as needy. Yes, you are. Should I hit her up next week or wait 2 weeks or just move on and set something up if she reaches out? You've hit her up enough. She knows you want to see her. You know she has finals coming up. She said she would contact you after finals or that she had time to whatever next weekend. So she said she had finals next week, but she would be free next weekend. So here's what I'm going to say. I would say this. A, don't plan weekend dates, all right? And if you're going to do that, plan it for a Sunday. So do this. Wait until Thursday, all right? Give her some time and then say, hey, the Thursday of the finals, right? And even with that, she might still be trying to be in finals mode to where she sees your text and be like, oh, this guy again. So I'd say, you know what, to be real, I'd wait until after finals. Wait till after finals, hit her up like, hey, how'd finals go? Great. So you know what? Restaurant open, place just opened, this fun place I found, blah, 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 blah. Want to see what your Thursday or Sunday's looking like? Let me know. And that's it, all right? But you should not be, you already left it up to her to text you back. So you constantly texting is always going to come across as needy now, guys. So I would say try to curtail doing all this texting to her. It's not necessary. And also, you need to give her space to come to you, and you're not doing that, which we're going to talk about in the next segment, okay? But hopefully, guys, for now, this helps you out. So before we get into all that, I need some water, so I'm going to take a momentary break while you guys watch this video.
Call this beat Will Smith because it slaps hard.
It is literally impossible to be a man these days. Guys, you are so handsome and so smart, and it kills me that you don't think you're good enough. Like, we always have to be manly men, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. You're expected to be strong, but not too aggressive. You have to be successful, but you can't show off your achievements too much or it feels like bragging. You have to be a provider, but never ask for help because that's a sign of weakness. You're supposed to be emotionally resilient, but not too stoic because then you're disconnected. You have to be confident, but not arrogant. You have to be a leader, but not domineering. You have to be fit and muscular, but not overly obsessed with your appearance. You're supposed to be assertive, but not overbearing. You're expected to make the first move in dating, but not be too forward, or you'll scare women away. You have to be the pursuer, but not seem desperate. You're supposed to be decisive, but not controlling. You're expected to be a good husband and father, but never prioritize your family over your career. You have to be caring, but not too emotional. You're supposed to be protective, but not overprotective. You have to be successful in your career, which usually means spending long hours at work, but you also have to have time for your family and personal life. You're expected to handle everything on your own, but never show vulnerability or ask for support. You're supposed to be self-reliant, but not afraid to seek help when needed. You're expected to be a role model, but also deal with societal expectations of what a real man should be. Now, if you dare to speak up for men's issues or express traditional aspects of masculinity, you're labeled with toxic masculinity. But If you express your emotions, you're often labeled as weak or too sensitive. And if you're too much of a nice guy who embraces sensitivity and kindness, you're often overlooked or seen as less desirable by women. It's as if society constantly places us in a catch-22 situation where whatever we do, we're judged and criticized, and it is exhausting. Nobody gives you a pat on the back for navigating through it all. And if something goes wrong, it's often blamed on you, as if you were solely responsible for all the evils happening in society. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other man bend and twist ourselves to fit into these narrow definitions of masculinity. And if I, as a man, can't even tell the world I'm going to go, quote unquote, see a chick flick without being questioned, I don't even know. It's too much to handle, and it feels like we're set up to fail from the start. Go see Barbie.
What the French toast? What the French toast?
Hey guys, I'm back. So that was just a little monologue I put together that's currently, I guess, blowing up on TikTok. But I saw the Barbie movie and saw that monologue and was like, what would the guy version of that be? And it's true. There's a lot of stuff we go through that, I don't think this is not a monologue, an attempt to like say women's struggles are are not as complicated as men, because I don't believe that. Is really just an exercise in like what that would sound like from a guy's perspective and what the issues they would put in one of those monologues. But anyway, hope you enjoyed that. So let's get into this guy's question, which is actually going to be the crux for this section. So we're talking about secure love, decoding affectionate withdrawal. And again, I want to talk about this because a lot of guys have this scenario go on that I'm going to talk about that this guy wrote to me about. So he said, after 1 year of dating, the good morning and good night text are starting to disappear. When we are together, everything is great, including the hookup. The lack of texting is concerning. Now, this is about honestly, about the fourth or fifth guy in the last 2 or 3 weeks or so that have sent me a similar message where it's like, they say, hey, so me and this girl, we're boyfriend and girlfriend. We've been dating for 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And in the beginning, she was texting me a whole lot. And now the texts are starting to fall off. Even though in person, she's still hooking up with me 3 or 4 times a day, but I'm just not getting those texts. What's going on with that? I feel there's a concern here. And I get it, because we're looking at patterns of behavior. And a lot of times, if we notice any kind of deviation from a pattern, we start to worry and think, wow, this pattern's no longer the same as it was before. There must be something suspicious going on. Either she's stepping out on me or she's losing feeling for me. And all these other various things could be happening that are positive, but these couple of things over here are starting to make me worry, all right? And so I wanted to talk about this concept called affectionate withdrawal, right? And this is affectionate withdrawal is that in the course of a relationship, as a woman starts to be around you more and trust you more and feel more secure, then a lot of the things she was doing early on in the relationship in order to try to facilitate that bond and that trust is to her no longer necessary. And I'm actually going to show this video by this guy. His name is Brian says, I don't know. He has a channel on YouTube called Psych Hacks, which I'm a big fan of. And he talks about a variety of issues. And most recently, he did a video talking about why it is that hooking up with a partner starts to dwindle in marriage. And it's not for such a negative reason as people think. So I'm gonna pull his video up on the screen here. Let me see, I pulled up. Okay, so this is his video, and I'm going to play through parts of this and stop and start because the stuff he talks about in this video, I believe, actually correlates really, very well with texting also in particular, but also other various things that men are looking at where they're like, this was how she was in the beginning, and now this behavior's changed, and I'm worried. So let's get into his video.
And it seems to be the case that the organic tendency in relationships is for the frequency and intensity of sex to decline as a function of time.
Okay, so I'm going to parallel, right? So in the beginning of a relationship, oftentimes, whether you meet them online or in person, you guys exchange each other's numbers, and then you're trying to text a whole lot because you're trying to, attempting to build rapport and establish some kind of feeling being there, and also using it a lot to set up dates, to set up meetups, to be able to say good night and good morning to each other when you're not in front of each other's presence. And by the way, I'll tell you guys extensively to across the board, not to do as much reaching out. Your job texting should be to get dates. her job should be to try to text you to remind you that she's still there and that she misses you. And so it should be 3 to 1. For every 3 texts that she initiates, you initiate 1, with the exception being, if you're having to wait between dates to hear from her, then you initiate the text to ask for the next date, all right? But to the point, in the beginning, women are going to a lot of times be trying to text you nonstop because they're just so enthralled with you, your new stimuli, but also they're wanting to make sure you don't forget about them. So they're going to be texting you oftentimes nonstop. And guys, we eat this up. We're like, oh my God, this girl's paying us attention. She's texting us day and night, and it feels like I'm getting close to a real relationship finally. It's so great.
There are things you can do to prevent or mitigate this tendency, but doing nothing generally produces outcomes in this direction. Now, there are many reasons why this happens, because sex is actually a really complicated activity. It's not just about making babies and hedonic pleasure. There are lots of things that sex does in human relationships, and one of the most important things that it does is facilitate emotional bonding.
Okay, so what he said, hooking up a lot in the beginning, part of the reason we do that is because it's to facilitate a bond. So now let's correlate this with texting. In the beginning, when a woman realizes she has high interest in you, she's going to be texting you a lot because she's trying to really establish with you a connection. She wants to be able to show you that she cares about you and that she's wanting to actually really get with you in a real kind of way. All right. So that's going to facilitate her doing a lot of texting in the beginning when that bond isn't quite as strong, and she's doing the best that she can to see that it gets stronger.
This is largely due to the fact that certain sexual behaviors are associated with increased levels of oxytocin, the hormone that facilitates emotional bonding.
Now, what's interesting is oxytocin is also the chemical that hits our pleasure centers in our brain. You know what else also does that? Gambling. Like when you hear the bells and whistles of the machines in Vegas, this is why, like in Vegas, people get gambling problems, because part of the allure of that is we hear those little dings. It means, oh my God, we've won a prize, or we won some money, or we got a little thing in a slot machine. Where else do you also hear that ding? You also hear that ding when out of nowhere, you get a phone notification that the girl that you're talking to texts you, like, oh my God. And it makes your brain feel like you've won the jackpot. Like, yes, this girl reached out to me. I heard the ding. Oh my God, she's doing it again. And in the beginning, you're going to hear these dings quite frequently. Like, oh my God, every 5 minutes, it's ding, ding, ding. And your brain's just like, yes, 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 she likes me. She likes me. I'm winning, I'm winning, winning. So can you imagine what happens to your brain when over time, it's not getting to hear those dings as much anymore? Because I know we think about texting is like, it's just messaging, but the way in which messaging happens, where we hear dings and bells and whistles, those things also play into why we get so frustrated when the person that we like suddenly stops texting as much, because we're not getting to hear those dings, i.e. our brain's not being rewarded as frequently as it was before when we were getting all the texts we wanted to hear.
The higher the oxytocin levels, the stronger the bond. This is why sex is typically so hot and heavy in the early stages of the courtship process.
And this is also why texting, it may seem like in the beginning, she's texting quite frequently, because as she's trying to establish that bond, she's going to text you a lot more until the time where she feels as though that bond is actually established.
At this stage of the relationship, neither party has any legitimate claim on the other. And so neither can reasonably expect to see that person ever again.
Okay, so now think about this with texting, right? In the beginning, like you said, neither of you have any ties to the other person. This other person doesn't have to show up ever again, whether it's they hook up with you once and then they flee, or they text and flee. But ideally, you're thinking, okay, but if I text more, and she's thinking, if I text more, then ideally, I'm doing that in part because I don't want this other person to leave while I'm trying to still establish a bond with them. I want them to see, and I need them to have all the proof in the world that they are the ones that I want to be with. And if that means I got to text them more, then that's what I'm going to do.
This creates a lot of uncertainty and insecurity, especially when there are high levels of attraction, which stimulate the impulse to solidify the emotional bond.
So what did he say right there? He said, because there's a lack of stability, then that gives both parties the incentive to text more in hopes of eventually building a secure enough bond to where that other person knows that you want them around, and vice versa.
Basically, when early couples have sex, they're functionally saying with their bodies, I want you to come back.
So again, same thing. When women are constantly texting you in the beginning, they're effectively saying to you, hey, I think you're a really great guy. I want you in my life and I want to keep seeing you. And so I'm going to keep texting you until you get the idea. And by the way, women are assuming that we don't already want to constantly see them, but like, that's why they're texting a lot. So like, on the off chance he's not, I'm going to continuously text him. Now, I will say this, here's a hack for you guys, right? This is also why I tell you guys time and time again, even when you get in a relationship, you should not be doing a whole lot of initiating of text, because as long as you are not the one that is initiating text, I assure you the women in your life are going to text you a lot more. Even if it starts to die down a bit, it's never going to die down to too low of levels because you're not the one that's initiating. And you should only be initiating again if you are trying to plan an activity of some kind. And then sporadically, every so often you say, hey, just thinking of you text, but you don't send it at the level that they're going to send it, because then the balance doesn't work. It just, I found in my personal life, it just doesn't work when the guy is constantly being the one to try to text and initiate all the time.
Stronger the bond, the more likely the person will return. This situation changes dramatically over time. Once a relationship has been defined and a commitment has been secured and a mutual lifestyle established, the idea that the other person is just going to up and leave becomes less and less of a probability. In fact, there's no need to wonder whether someone is going to come back if they never leave in the first place. The relationship becomes more secure, but in so doing, the other person becomes a sure thing. And once this happens, one of the primary functions of sex, the establishment of an emotional bond, becomes irrelevant and redundant.
All right. So here's where it is, guys. Here's where the problem lies. What did he just say? He basically said that at the point where a woman is secure in the relationship, you know, you guys, you've gotten to that 3-month mark, you've had the what are we conversation, you've established you are now in a relationship, a lot of her worries are going to start to go away because she's thinking, oh my God, like, oh, all the stuff I did for those 3 months and you know, the unsureness, stuff like that, we're in a relationship now, I now feel secure. And so what that means also now is that she also feels as though she does not have to do all the behaviors that she was doing in an attempt to try to establish a bond and try to get into a relationship. And he's talking about, you know, obviously hooking up here, but another primary thing that happens is that a woman and the amount of time that she's texting you will start to dissipate. And the reason that actually is, wait for it, guys, is because she's so secure in the relationship and she trusts you and she knows that you like that you like her being around and vice versa, to where she doesn't feel like that's a necessity to have to text as much, because she's thinking, I did it. I'm in the relationship. I'm already secure. He knows I like him. So like all that extra texting I was doing shouldn't have to be done anymore. And where guys get tripped up is we're like, but pattern change. She's not doing it as much anymore. Oh my God, what's going on? And we're thinking that this pulling away of her texting is a bad thing. And what it's actually signaling is that she's more secure in the relationship.
There is no necessity to create security in completely secure relationships. And because it's not needed, it's very hard in some cases to arouse an authentic desire for it. Few people crave food when they're not hungry.
So in other words, at the point that she gets to where you guys are in a relationship, she feels like you guys can trust each other and she's not as anxious anymore. Now, the same amount of need that she had before to text you all the time is no longer there, because part of the reason she was texting you so much was to establish that bond. At the point where she feels that you've established a bond, you guys are consistently going out, you guys are seeing each other on a regular basis, that need to text lessens by necessity, because you guys already have a bond where you're connecting more frequently, probably in person anyway, to where this aspect of it no longer is as needed to create a bond that's already been established. Now, I think at this point, he's going to get into like, what's the solution for guys? Because here's the thing, like I said, guys get very butthurt. We like this guy that wrote to me, right? He's been in a relationship with this girl for a year, right? And she comes over 2 or 3 times a week, bangs his brains out, does all the stuff he likes, but yet he's still worried because the texting is less. And he's thinking this is an indicator that they're starting to bond less. And what I'm trying to show you guys is that this is actually proof that she's actually so strongly bonded to you that the bonding activity she was doing before on a more frequent basis are necessary because she is feeling solidified in you two, in your two's bond. All right. And so as a guy, it can be very hard to understand this because we're very much like, we have things that like from kid age, we still like. I've been playing Zelda since I was like 8 years old. And I'm playing the new one now. Like that doesn't go away just because I got older, And so we can be very consistent in doing an action or liking a thing or wanting certain things to happen throughout our entire lives. Women aren't going to do that. Women are going to change up and ebb and flow based on emotions, based on how they feel about you, based on how much trust you have with them. And so we as men can't be so jarred when we start to see things like this and think that anytime a woman's starting to do less of something than she did in the beginning of a relationship, that it means that she suddenly lost feeling or that there's no bond there. So let's go into what he says is the solution to all this.
People have trouble tolerating uncertainty and insecurity, especially with people they're attracted to. And this anxiety motivates people to reduce that uncertainty and insecurity in their relationships as much and as quickly as possible.
So what he's saying basically is that at the point that we'll use the men, for example. So as men, when we start feeling insecure or anxious about stuff, like, for example, in this example, it's like, oh, she was texting me all the time and now she's not. I feel some kind of way about that. I'm nervous. That the answer we have is I want to try to do things or make her do things that are going to lessen my anxiety. And this looks like going to her and saying, hey, so I noticed you don't text me as much as you used to. Like, I want to know what's up with that. And why don't you send me good morning texts anymore? You used to do that a lot. And now you don't. I don't know what's going on. And in our heads, we're thinking, if I present it like that, then she'll go back to doing what she was doing before. And then there'll be less anxiety on my part and I'll feel more secure. But you got to ask yourself the question, what does that look like to her? If you go to her and say, hey, babe, you're not texting as much as you used to, blah, 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 to her, that indicates that you're feeling insecure, which now makes her wonder, but what do you have to feel insecure about? Why is there now an insecurity and anxiousness in our relationship? What is it about this that's causing you as the guy to suddenly not have faith in what we're doing? And that can make her now question if you guys have that strong of a bond because you're questioning it. That whole projection thing, you're projecting our insecurity to her. And now she has to take on that insecurity also that she didn't have before, right? So let's continue on.
And sex is one great way to do that. The issue is that no one gets aroused by security and stability.
Facts. So you guys are like, I need to be more secure. I need to get her to text me and blah, 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 blah. But that's not going to arouse her. That's not going to make her feel the same tingles for you. Like she's feeling them now when she's not texting you a whole lot because she's basking in the fact that there's such a secure bond here. And that's what she's always wanted. And you trying to address that you don't text me as much now makes her feel as though, oh, maybe this bond isn't as strong as I thought. So that's not the solution.
To keep desire alive in committed relationships, we need to have a greater collective tolerance for uncertainty and insecurity, because it's in that space that the necessity for sex as a bonding agent remains evergreen.
Now, there's a part I cut out before this where he's talking about, basically he says, how do we stop this from happening? Well, the first part is he says, I'm not going to say that you should have an affair, but I'm going to say you should act like you're having an affair, because there are certain behaviors that being in an affair facilitates that can actually spark more arousal. Okay.
I'm not advising people to go out and cheat on their spouses, but everything that goes with cheating, the space, the mystery, the novelty, the freedom, the risk, the elusiveness is really good at maintaining sexual interest.
Right. So think about this, right? Subconsciously, there is a part of your woman that she starts texting you less, and subconsciously, another reason for that is because she knows on a subconscious level that if she's constantly around you, if she's constantly hearing from you all the time, if she's constantly texting you all the time, that's going to actually take away the motivation and desire she has to really be with you in the moments when she does see you. Because think about this, right? There's a difference between, if we'll start earlier in the relationship, right? If you take a woman out and then you wait 4 days or 5 days before you text her for another date, right? She's now had 4 to 5 days to wait to anticipate hearing from you again, seeing you again. And anticipation and anxiety, those things actually create motivation and desire in women to want to see you, because out of sight, she has to think about you all the time and think about how great you make her feel and think about what you're going to do to her when she sees you again. But if your guys are texting each other nonstop, there is no time for her to sit and think and wonder about you and think about, God, when I see him again, it's going to be so great. And so part of her texting less is because she wants to keep that spark alive in her. She's doing her part to see that she continues to maintain a high level of attraction by forcefully making herself not text you as much. And so when you get butthurt about it, now she's thinking, great, so I got to go back to texting him all the time. And that's going to slowly over time start to lessen her desire. She's not going to understand why, because most women aren't as conscious about this kind of stuff as I am. But all she's going to know is like, he wants me to text him more, so I'm doing that. But suddenly it's not feeling the same. It doesn't feel as close of a bond to him as when I was able to just trust that we had a great relationship, because now I got to text him nonstop, which feels like I'm having to check in on him, like I'm his mom almost. And also sometimes I have days where I don't want to text him. I have other things going on, but while I'm doing those other things, I'm thinking about him, but he's wanting me to reach out and text him. So that cuts all that. All right. And so the space away from a person can sometimes be the best space to actually have the other person build up more of a desire for you.
Stop asking permission. Do something different without telling your partner. Carve some space for yourself that doesn't involve the other person. Resist the urge to communicate throughout the day. Break out of your routines and simultaneously pull back on pursuing sex in your primary relationship. Give your partner the opportunity, the gift of wondering about you, of feeling your absence, of missing your presence. After all, you can't connect with someone if you never disengage.
Exactly. So like I said, when you give that other person space to do other things, you're giving them the freedom to not have to contact you all the time. One, that'll typically make a person want to contact you more because they know you're not going to be so upset if they don't. That now gives them the freedom to choose to contact you. And more often than not, you're going to find they're going to make that choice more in your favor when you're not bugging them. But also, yeah, to his point, the woman cannot desire you if you're constantly wanting her to contact you all the time. And obviously in a relationship, you want them to regularly be in contact with you, but trying to force her to do a specific form of contact all the time is only going to make her feel honestly resentful, but also start to get tired of you and start to lose desire. So this is why, back to this guy's original comment about, after 1 year, the text, the good night and good morning texts are starting to disappear, but everything's still great when they're together, including the hookup. Dude, that just means that she has established a strong bond with you. And, she was doing a lot of texting in the beginning to try to create that bond. It is a finished project. You are now on to the next part of the project. If she's doing all the things in person, if she's still saying yes to dates, if she's still consistently hooking up with you, if she's still doing, surprise gifts for you or cooking for you, whatever, then you're good. All right. It could very well just be that the early texting she was doing to establish that bond, she no longer feels like there's a motivation to have to do that. And also what you'll find too, if you're not pestering about it, and if you're not, because I imagine this is one of those cases probably where, like, as the guy, you're probably doing a lot of initiating in an attempt to try to reestablish a texting bond. Don't do that. You should be using the phone to set up dates specifically and just do that. And if you just keep it to texting when you're doing that, you will find that she will start to text you a bit more than she is now. But don't discount a whole relationship on account of the texting change, because the frequency of texting is going to change. At some point in your relationship, the frequency of hookups is going to change. There are going to be a plethora of other things in the course of a relationship that are going to change. Hey, you might be with a woman who in the beginning, you guys are going to movies all the time, and then she starts to go less because you find out she didn't like movies. Are you going to be butthurt because oh my gosh, she's not good? No, things are going to change because a lot of things that both sexes do in the beginning in an attempt to try to get this person, they're hard to keep up. For example, I dated a woman one time where for the first 6 months of our relationship, we were celebrating the anniversary of the day that we went out on our first date for 6 months straight. At that 6th month, I was like, yo, this is a lot. I care about you immensely, but doing this every single month, we ain't got to do that. Like, because in my head, I'm like, we're already together. We see each other on a consistent basis. Celebrating this milestone every single month is not a necessity. And honestly, that was a hard conversation, but she got it. She was like, I get it. You know, like, hey, we see each other. We don't have to do this every single month. And it's like, yeah. So that was an example of an activity that I was taking away because it was cool to do it for the first 3 or 4 months as we were trying to establish a bond. But that wasn't necessary given we were already doing a bunch of other things that established that we had a strong bond. So don't punish women if they start to slack off on texting. You're going to find, guys, a lot of women, as much as they like to text you, they're doing that to create that bond, but they want to get back to their regular life. They have other people that they're trying to hang out with, family, friends. They have jobs that they're on, and they might start to realize I did the job of establishing a bond with this guy. Now I can get back to my regular scheduled life where he's now included in it, but I'm not texting as frequently because I got other stuff I got to do besides text this guy all day. And now that we built that bond, thank God I got to do that no more. So just think about that the next time you're thinking, she's pulling away because she's not texting. It could very well be she actually has such a strong bond with you that all that texting is no longer necessary. So hopefully, guys, this helps you out. All right, let's get into some of these. Unbox. Thank you for Unbox Views. Appreciate the comment and the support. So I'm going to answer a few more questions here. I'm basically going until 6 o'clock today. So if you guys have any other questions that you want to ask me during the course of the show, ask them now because I charge for this heavily on my website. So it's free if you ask me now. So ask in the comments if you got questions. All right, let's see. Let's go back up here a bit, see what other questions I had here. So I did that one, Let's see. So this guy says, this ghosting situation has messed up the dating world. Burning bridges way too fast is an issue, and no one will trust you after you do. So I admit I have ghosted people, but it was after seeing characteristics I didn't like, and I knew I didn't want any contact with the person. But how are you going to say you like them, then ghost and try to come back? It doesn't make sense. The problem is no one's holding these women actions accountable, and sadly, there are dudes waiting behind the phone for her text. Okay, so I'll address a few things here. For starters, it seems kind of like contradictory because he says, ghosting has messed up the situation. And then he says, I've also ghosted, but only after seeing characteristics I didn't like, and I didn't want to contact them anymore. I assure you, most women that are ghosting are doing it for the same reason. They went on a date with somebody, and maybe they had a good time, but they just saw certain things or heard certain things that made them realize this wasn't the person for them, and then they ghost, Hey, they might have gone on a date and realized their political values don't match, or, I went on a date one time with a woman where we had a really great date. The chemistry was there, the vibe was there, but she mentioned during the course of the date that people in her family had twins, and she wanted to have twins. And I had just gotten a vasectomy. So I knew this isn't going to work out. So I didn't ask her out after that. But I wouldn't try to be mean. I just knew that based on what we talked about during the course of the date, that this wasn't going to be the person for me. So you can't be like, well, I only ghosted them because characteristics, but these other people, these women that are ghosting, boo on them, they're doing the exact same thing you are, all right? But more to the point, this thing where it says, how are you going to say you like them, then ghost, then try to come back? It doesn't make sense. Well, for one, not everything in dating is going to make sense, but I can actually make sense of this. So there are a plethora of reasons why a woman would go out with you and then ghost you and then come back. I have found the most frequent one typically tends to be is that a woman will go out with you, and then usually what happens after the date is that a guy will start over texting. She gets freaked out by it or gets annoyed by it and lets it go. And then what happens is the guy eventually figures out, oh, she's not texting me back, and then he leaves her alone. And when he leaves her alone, the woman's like, oh, he's not texting as much. Now I have time to sit around and think about him. And then she thinks about him, and it's like, oh, I think I want to try again. And then they reach back out. Because what happened? Because when you were over texting, you were applying too much pressure to the situation, which wasn't making it feel like her choice to choose you. And women, you have to leave women space to be able to choose you and to come to you. So most guys I find are too overeager after one date to where they want to try to text her all the time, call all the time, get her on multiple dates throughout the course of the week. And that ends up becoming too much. And most guys don't tell the whole story. They'll just say, she said she liked me and then she just ghosted. And usually there's more to the story. It's usually more like over texting happened, or there were some sexual jokes said during the date that she didn't find appealing, or other reasons that he's either not aware of or isn't trying to tell him the story, because as people, we like to make ourselves look like the hero. So we did nothing wrong in these dates. It's just these women are all crazy and they ghost me after this date for no reason. There's usually a reason. Like if I talk to guys enough and I'm able to spend some time with them in coaching sessions, I can start to see, oh, this is probably an area that you're not aware of that made her ghost. All right. So when that happens, when they come back, it's because they've had time to sit with themselves and think, okay, that guy wasn't too bad. I'll try to give him another shot. And what happens is these girls reach back out, gives him another shot. The guy does the same stuff he was doing before where he's calling too much or texting too much or whatever. And then she's like, oh, okay, I was right the first time. And then they bail for good. All right. So guys, just be aware of that. And again, this isn't all scenarios. Some women very much are like, I just want the attention. Oh, no guys paid me attention this week. I'm gonna go back to that other guy. That does happen. But I'm saying, in my experience, that's not a majority of what happens. The majority of what happens is guys do too much early on. And then once he goes away, the woman has time to sit with herself and they come back hoping that he's going to be as patient of a guy as he has been in the last few days or weeks by not contacting her. Anyway, let's see. So we got a question here in the chat. And the question goes, I'm dating a girl for 3 months and the relationship conversation is starting to come up from her side. Yes! That should be happening. That's what I tell you guys. If you wait 3 months, they will come to you and start saying, what are we? Are you dating anybody else? So what do we call this thing? Yada, yada, yada. And then so he says, I want to be in a relationship with her, but what's the correct approach to handle when the what are we or what do you want situations come up? Well, I have a whole program at my website called Top Secret Dating Blueprint, where I go into it's like the 3 months of how you meet, greet, attract, and land a woman. And the very end of that program, I explicitly talk about what to do when these conversations come up. So if you want the full detail of that, I say get the program. But I would say this, is that at the point where she says, what are we, or what do you want, blah, 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 this is the sign from her that she's ready to have the relationship talk. The worst thing you could do is just out the gate say yes. Because you don't want to go into a relationship just saying yes without first establishing what the terms are that are going to make you want to be in this relationship. You want to come from a position of like, you're not rushing in because you don't want to seem like you're too overeager. And also you want to make sure that the stuff that you want or need in a relationship is going to be honored and abided by. All right. Now in my program, I go into examples of the kind of things you can talk about, but I will say this is that whatever you're not going to want in a relationship, you talk about that before you agree to the relationship, because if you don't, then it's harder to negotiate those things once you've already established it. For example, I'll give you a brief example, right? Like a lot of guys feel some kind of way about their woman being on social media, specifically the ones that are like showing bikini pictures and stuff like that, right? So as a guy, if you start dating her, I'm not the kind of guy that's like, you need to tell her, hey, it's been 3 dates, get rid of your social media, yada, yada, yada. But when the time comes when she's like, hey, like, what are we, yada, 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 I want a relationship, I want to know what this is, that's when I would say, okay, well, before we talk about relationship, let me ask you this, like, do you have social media? Well, yeah. Okay. Like, do you post up bikini pictures and stuff like that up on there? Okay. Yeah, I do that sometimes here and there. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's just leave things as they are. Like what? Like, yeah, like, I don't know if I want to date somebody that's like having that kind of stuff up. So let's just leave things as they are. And that is the response you can give a woman to anything that you feel is not going to work for you in a relationship, because you're not going to ever tell a woman you need to change this thing about yourself in order for me to be in a relationship. But you can say, based on what you like to do, that doesn't gel with me, so we'll keep things where they're at. That way it makes it her decision if she wants to change the behavior. If she does, then you say, okay, great, let's talk about the next thing, and so forth and so on. But again, I'll go over that extensively in my program. So check out my program and you can see what that's all about. All right. Also, he says, another question, she is a virgin. I haven't pushed too much for her hooking up. Do you think that's a good approach, or should I keep advancing until we eventually end up hooking up? Oh, man. You know what's funny? I've had, I have woman friends that are a bit older and are still virgins. And I have other friends that are guys that have dealt with women who are virgins, right? So here's my honest answer about that, right? Is that you can't force a woman, obviously, to give up her virginity. But I would seriously have conversations about where she's at in her virginity journey. Because there's some women that are going to be like, you know what? I'm a virgin now, but if I get with the right person, I'm totally down to hook up. And then there are some women that are going to be like, I'm a virgin until I'm married, and the person I'm dating has to understand that. And neither of those things are bad things, but you have to know what's going to work for you realistically. So here's the thing, right? If she's a virgin, you can have the conversation. You could say, okay, so obviously you haven't, gone away with somebody like that. So, and clearly I have. So I'm not saying I'm going to try to force anything on you now, but like, what are your feelings about we're in a relationship? What are your feelings about at some point possibly wanting to I want to be a virgin? And then you shut up and see what she says. And she might say, well, I think we have a good thing going, and I might need a little more time, but I could see that somewhere down the line actually happening. And you could say, okay, great. So do you see that, are you the kind of person that's waiting until marriage, or are you just waiting to make sure that that bond with that other person has been established? Because she might be I just need to feel a bond type of person. I was 23 when I lost my virginity, and I waited till I got with a person that I was like, you know what? I really feel as though me and this person have a good connection going on. And I definitely see that this is the person I want to give that up to. But it took me 3 or 4 months of being with this person before I finally said, okay, you know what? That's going to be a thing. And so that might be the thing for her. She might just be like, I need to make sure that I'm in a at least a boyfriend and girlfriend relationship where I've had time to establish trust and really see consistency from the person, to where I can trust that if this is the thing that I do, it's not just going to be a hit it and quit it. They're not going to use it against me or tell other people, but that it's a bonding moment for us too. And that's a realistic conversation you can have, but I find most women, they're usually just waiting for that connection. And for some women, that means wait until they're married. And some women, it just means I need to trust the guy a bit more. But you got to have that conversation, because again, you don't want to go into a relationship blindsided. You don't want to go in there thinking, well, yeah, once you become boyfriend or girlfriend, she'll totally be down to hook up, because you could be in for a rude awakening. So find that out about what her journey looks like before you get into a relationship. Just saying. Okay. He says, awesome. The topic did come up, and she's a virgin because she hasn't met a guy worthy of giving it to him, not all because she's holding on marriage. Okay. Well, hey, good luck on the conversation. And again, and here's the thing too, at the point where you guys become boyfriend or girlfriend, don't assume if you become boyfriend or girlfriend that night, it's going to automatically be on and popping. Okay. You might still have to go another 2 or 3 months before she's like, hey, what's up? Okay. Now, with that said, as the guy in the relationship, it's still going to be your job to push that envelope. Okay. And so you might be able to think where you do a little bit of push and pull, but you want to go into the situation not with kid gloves on, but basically being able to read where she's at any given time. So for example, you guys are just randomly having dinner at your place one day, and if she's on the couch, you're sitting next to her, you start making out, right? So you might just kind of go a little bit further than natural. Maybe if you're used to making out to this point, you maybe try to, touch her boob, or try to move your hands down a little bit, right? You go in and kind of slowly, and then you do things until the point where she says, oh, or she'll push your hand back a little bit, or maybe say, oh, that's a little too much. At that point, you just say, okay, no problem, boom. And you go back to the previous step. And then next time you go back to that step that you did beforehand, where you went a little bit further, and she's more accepting of it. We'll say an example, you grab her boob, and this time she doesn't move your hand. Great. You now know that grabbing boob is an established move. Great. Next time you grab the boob, maybe you're kissing on her neck a little bit, and she's getting a little more aroused, and it's great. And then you start trying to unbutton her shirt. Oh, no, don't do that. Okay, great. You now know you can touch her boob, you can touch her neck. Great. Next time you see her, you do that. And so each time you're pushing a boundary slowly, to where inevitably you're going to get to where she's darn near naked, and she's going to be either let's just go for it, or she'll be like, hey, I want you to guide me on this, but be gentle. Either way, you do it bit by bit. So you're not going to go from we're doing nothing to we're going to just totally smash. Again, you try to move step by step and see where the gates are. And each time those gates and those fences are going to move bit by bit, to where, it might be you get her naked and you finger a little bit, and that's all she wants to do, because she's not quite ready to, subconsciously, to go all the way, but she lets you in her in some form of fashion. Great. Maybe next time after that, you can go down on her, she goes down on you, or whatever. And the next time after that, she's like, crap, we've done almost everything else at this point, so why not? So make sure you're reading where she's at and going at her pace, and the whole time, again, you're passing boundaries, but you're not pushing them. You're not getting mad at her if she wants you to go back a step. Just, you make it an easy journey for her to get to the promised land. All right. So hopefully, guy, that helps you out. All right. Got a couple more questions here on the on the list from last week. Let's see here. Let's see. Okay, interesting one. So this guy left a comment under my 10-level sliding scale of female interest, where I talk about the sliding scale of a woman's interest in you and how it can ebb and flow on any given day, depending on how she's feeling, her mood, stuff going on between you guys, the atmosphere, yada, yada, yada. So this guy says, I feel that trying to figure a woman out using a scale method would be difficult, as women themselves don't know what they really want. Attractive women have tens of suitors at any time. And by the way, that is definitely a stereotype. I have found not all women have like a bevy of dudes chasing after them. Even like average to relatively good looking women oftentimes don't have as many people in the DMs as we would think. Like, just because we feel as though that person over there is our type of person that we find personally attractive does not mean that other dudes feel that same way. And as such, she could also still be limited in the guys chasing her, which is why for you guys that are worried about trying to go after models or really attractive women or tens or whatever like that, I can assure you many of those tens are lonely and single because all other guys think they already got somebody and they don't. But anyway, so he says, attractive women have tens of suitors at any given time trying to gain her interest. So honestly, she herself would be confused with all these choices. How do I deal with attractive women in this case? I ignore them. I keep myself busy with running my business to the point where I don't even care if they still remember that I exist. Eventually, they end up being curious as to what I've been up to. If I do meet them, I make sure to show them great time. I will also initiate physical contact and make them know that I want to hook up. Yes, this is how I usually get them in bed within 2 to 3 dates, and I won't be gentle with them, nor should you. After which, I disappear back into my mission in life and ignore them completely. I hardly ever initiate contact because they are not really on my mind. I focus on them exclusively during the date, but after that, I focus back on my mission. My physical appearance is very average. I dress neatly, bathe, and brush my teeth. I have a successful business, but I try not to use money to lead any of these women. A nice dinner or a gift once in a while is fine. Be confident and brash, and don't give an F attitude. Good luck. So I want to address this, right? So he says here, it says it would be difficult to use the scale method because women themselves don't know what they really want. And here's the thing, guy. I think this is where the problem arises, where men think about, we have a certain way to think about attraction. We think about attraction as though it's a concrete decision, and that if I say I want X, Y, and Z, I'm going to simply find a woman that has X, Y, and Z, and boom, that's the woman for me. And for women, it doesn't work that way. And I know we get fooled by that because we hear women say things like, oh, I want a guy that has these stats, these amount of abs, this amount of money, blah, 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 and oh, this is that. And then we see them fall for these other dudes that are broke, out of shape, and are like the worst acting dudes in the world, but they still get the hookup, right? So, but here's the thing. Is it a question of women not knowing what they want, or is it a question of a woman knowing what she wants when she feels it and when she sees it? Because everything he describes after this sentence is what women want. So let's go through his list again, right? He keeps busy. He doesn't contact them all the time. He lets them know he is a sexual being and wants a hookup. He is focused more on his mission than he is on them. These are the behaviors across the board that women want. So the real problem is that men don't know what women are wanting and knowing how to display that to where women will see that and say, oh my gosh, that's the guy I want. And I've told this story several times on this podcast where I have a friend of mine who years ago, she told us that she went to a club one time and she started talking to this dude and he got her a drink. So she drank the drink, they're talking some more, and then she says, and then he got me a second drink. And at that point, I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing. So what do women want? Women want men that know what the heck they're doing. And the problem most of you guys have is that you don't know what you're doing. You don't know the steps of attraction. You don't know when to be patient, when to pull away. You don't understand that focusing on anything else but her, except when you're with her, is what's going to cause her to text you first, chase after you, etc., etc. So it's not a matter of do women know what they want. It's a matter of can women recognize that a guy knows what women need and want and be able to display that to where she's like, yep, that's the guy. So if you focus, this guy's doing actually everything right. He's doing everything that women want in a guy. So you can't fault women and say women don't understand what they want. You have to fault yourself for not being aware of the things that you need to, as a guy, display and do, so that way women know that you know how to handle them, and then they'll come to you. It really is that simple. And that's what I had to go through. I took years, and I still to this day study, because I just find this stuff fascinating in general, but I'm always studying up on what are other things that women find interesting, what are ways to make them feel desired, what are ways that you can make them want to come to you. And the more you knowledge yourself with that stuff, the better equipped you are. And more importantly, the more easily women are going to be able to see that you are a man that knows what you're doing with women. And therefore, they're thinking, if he knows how to be with women, he must get a lot of women, and therefore, I want to be one of those women that he gets. If you need help with that, go to introvertdatingsuccess.com, sign up for coaching, sign up for a program. I'd love to help you get on the pathway towards knowing how to be the kind of man and how to display the kind of things authentically that women want. All right, do a couple more of these and we'll be out of here. Let's see what we have here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is another comment. This was left by a woman under the video, 3 things she's feeling when she feels ignored, and how to respond. And one of the ways I tell you to respond, and I say, if a woman is starting to pull away from you, then what you should be doing as a guy is also ignoring her. Like, she's not texting you because you're texting too much. And so the way to combat that is to ignore her, so that way she can come back to you, because she needs to be able to choose you, and she needs to chase after you. And as I always say, if she's chasing you, she can't be replacing you. So this person commented and said, you are telling males to ignore, but other coaches are also telling females to ignore. So everybody will ignore everybody, and all relationships will die. I just found that hilarious. But no, what I'm telling guys is this. I'm telling guys, if you are with a woman that is starting to ignore you and not text you as frequently, that is a signal that you as a guy have been already doing too much, and it's becoming a burden. And so you have to get a woman back on track by lessening that burden, by showing her that the impression she has of you now as a desperate, needy guy, because you're texting so much, can be taken away if you simply stop texting. So when you are ignoring, you're ignoring because you're already doing too much, and a woman's response to that is pulling away. At the point that you ignore her, she'll be able to see that you're not texting as much, which means you're not as desperate of a guy as she thought you were, which will now make her feel more at ease with wanting to connect with you again. So that's how what I'm telling guys to do is different, is that I'm not saying just ignore her completely. I'm saying you ignore her until she reaches out to you again, because we don't want her to consistently think that you're invading her space or that you're not respecting her by trying to text her and double text her and triple text her when it's starting to freak her out. So hopefully that helps to give a better description of what that means. All right. We got a question in the chat, and the question is, what books do you recommend for introverts to improve their emotional intelligence? Oh my God. I got to say that, like, you know, for me, well, there's a plethora of other people. Like, obviously, I want you to go to my website and buy my books and buy my programs. I don't specifically, however, have a book currently on emotional intelligence. So, but I will say this. I grew up when I was in my 20s and I was trying to figure all this stuff out. And there was a great guy who's not deceased now. He died in 2020, but his name was Doc Love. And Doc Love has a book called The System. And it's basically what he calls the dating dictionary. And it's literally all the phrases and things that women will say to you and actions that they'll do that actually mean these various things. He called it womanese. So he would be like, if a woman says, oh, I'm fine, it means it's not fine, and that you need to ask me again. If she says, oh, it was nothing, it means it was a big deal, like stuff like that. So in the course of that book, though, he really delves deep into the female psyche and about the various things that women do, what they respond to, and why they look at men a certain way when they do certain things. So that book's good. Corey Wayne's 3% Man. I've been a big fan of Corey Wayne's. I've been coaching about as long as him. And so his 3% Man book is actually really great because he really goes into like the ins and outs of, what the feelings that we have when women do certain things, why we feel those things, and then what's actually going on in a woman's head when she does those things. Because here's the thing. Ultimately, again, those books are great, but ultimately the best thing you can do is really gain more clarity into why it is that women move the way that they do and really, more importantly, like the thoughts behind them. Because the way men and women interpret how the other one acts, I find in my research and in my experience, is completely different. Like, for example, you go out with a woman, you text her, and she doesn't text you back right away. Like, what the deal? She must be having other suitors. She has other guys that are in her box. And it could very well be she had to go to a funeral, or her phone went out, or she was in a meeting when you text her. But we're thinking all these bad things automatically. And so the more you're able to understand women and how they function, it'll cause you to have less anxiety. And when you have less anxiety, you can start to think about things from a more intelligent space. Because beforehand, it'd be like, well, she's doing this thing because blah, 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 blah. Versus, wait a minute. She told me that she had finals this weekend and that she was going to be busy. Obviously, she needs time to do that. So she's not texting me as much. I should be able to understand that and give her a pass on that. And as guys, we just get so in our feelings about stuff. Like, I know, we're not supposed to be the more emotional ones, but guys really do get in their feelings about, she's not texting me, she's not calling me, there's not as many hookups, she's not seeing me every day like I want her to. Like, we get in our feelings and think about all these things, which is all ultimately tied to our ego. We're constantly looking for validation and proof that this woman wants me. And in the process of that, we're not able to see, but wait, if I'm being emotionally intelligent, why does she need a break from me today? Why does she need to go hang with her girlfriends versus me tonight? Why does she not want to go to this particular food spot with me, even though we go here all the time? And now she's saying she doesn't want to go. What's up? Like, we need to get more knowledge about that and their motivations of things, so we're not looking at it as like a personal thing if they're not acting the way that we want to. But hopefully, like I said, The System's a good book, and Corey Wayne, 3% Man. I'm starting to put out more ebooks this month, so I'll eventually get to a book about emotional intelligence at some point. I've always been a person on some level that's been able to see something from other person's perspective. And that really is like the biggest thing, is that when you're able to start, here's what I've realized and being in relationships and being able to date for, a lot of years and stuff like that, is that a big mistake most guys make, honestly, is when we're interacting with the person in front of us, it's that whole thing of do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We look at that other person as a different entity. When you're in a relationship, if you start looking at you and her as a we, then you will do things that is in the benefit of her as if you were doing it for yourself. So again, go back to an example of like, she says, hey, my girlfriends are in town and I want to hang out with them tonight. So we had a date established, but I know we had a date planned already, but like this girlfriend of mine's only in town for tonight. And so I want to go. Now, a guy that's not emotionally intelligent and is not thinking about this as a we thing would be like, but she promised me first, and how dare she, and she's canceling. A guy that's more emotionally intelligent and thinking about a we thing would be like, you know what? If I had my long lost college friend coming to town for one night, as much as I love this other person in front of me, I don't get to see this other person every day. I'd really want to see them. And so I would want her to give me the same grace to be able to do that. So I can't now turn around and say, my feelings are hurt because you want to see this other person, even though we had a thing established, because you know what? In the grand scheme of things, she's going to see me tomorrow, but she won't see this person every day. And I think if people did a better job of that, then they'd be able to start really being on a more emotionally intelligent plane with the person that they're with, because they will take it as like, I'm going to treat them as if they're a second version of me. And in a relationship, it's all about we. You guys become bonded, you become one person. So you got to treat that person as good as, if not better than, you would treat yourself. That's really the answer. Well, hopefully that helps you out. Guy asked, is this slide going to be uploaded? What was the name of the guy in the video you were analyzing minutes ago? So the guy, the channel's name is Psych Hacks, like PSYCHHACKS. I think it's like Dr. Obedian or something. He has some weird name, but like it's a white dude that stays in front of the camera and just talks for 10 minutes like this. But his stuff he has so many great different videos across the board. Like, I'm a huge fan of his channel. Hopefully one day I'll get to interview him and or be on his channel, because his stuff is absolutely amazing. But definitely go check him out. So anyway, guys, I think that's all I have for today. This has been a really great live. Thank you all for joining. Be sure to catch me on the next week's live. We do this every week. I try to do it at Tuesdays at 3:30. I had some hiccups today, so I had to do it at 4:30. But for those of you that watched it, thank you for checking it out. Be sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and I will catch you guys on the next show. I'm out. Peace.
Call this beat Will Smith, cause it slaps hard. Hear it